author, thought leader, entrepreneur, coach, consultant, course creator. If this is you, if you are any of those things, what I'm going to say will probably go against everything you've been taught. But it's true, so I'm going to say it anyway. Your trauma is not your biggest advantage. In the last 2 weeks, the New York Times has spotlighted the trauma-first books and platforms of, mega best-selling women authors like Jen Hatmaker, Elizabeth Gilbert, Amy Griffin, and to a lesser extent, Brené Brown. That's literally just off the top of my head. But check this out. Most of these women who are making millions of dollars from the trifecta, the book, brand, and business trifecta, most of these women are actually not in the book, brand, and business. They are unconsciously in the woundology business. And if you are marketing your personal brand, book, or business from your wounds, it might be exactly what's keeping you from being as free and as wealthy as you could be. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to tell whether you are in the woundology business. You'll have 3 things to stop doing and 3 things to start doing instead. And you'll know how to finally step into the freedom empire of your soul, the book, the personal brand, and the business, woundology-free, that you've been waiting for decades. Back in the 90s, Carolyn Myss, a very masterful teacher and author of many New York Times bestsellers from before the Memoir Plus era that we're in now, named something she called woundology. Oh, I will always remember the first time I read that term in her book, Sacred Contracts, which is a genius, very game-changing, very paradigm-shifting book. I'll put the link in the description. Woundology is when you use your trauma as a flag. It becomes your identity. It becomes your magnet for other people. It becomes a magnet for others who want to trauma bond with you. It's when you build, woundology is when you build your identity, your world, and even whole, nations of people around that one traumatic moment in time or that one traumatic era of your life. I think we can now apply woundology to using your trauma as your business model. All right. And so now we live in a time when we've all read Dr. van der Kolk. We all know, we've lived it. We know from lived experience that the body keeps the score. We all know that we must name and witness and not avoid our trauma in order to begin the healing journey. But that's the beginning of the healing journey, which means there's a middle, and it also can end if you let it. But when no one is telling these women, author entrepreneurs, is that the more you center trauma in your book, personal brand, or business, the more you reactivate that trauma in yourself. No one is telling them that the more you center trauma in your book, your brand, or your business, the more you attract trauma bonding customers. And certainly no one is telling them that the more you center trauma in your book, your brand, or your business, the more you reactivate trauma in the people you serve. And that ain't freedom. That's bondage. That's exactly how you create a business and a platform that is a constant source of friction, even if it is big or successful or profitable. That's why Brené just gave this, interview to the New York Times, where she's like, people walk up to me on the street crying. She says, I don't want to be your self-help guru anymore. And while we think it happens more for men, it's true, more for women, it's true for men too. I just read an article where Bessel van der Kolk himself, the author of The Body Keeps the Score, was quoted as saying, the journalist was asking him, what about trauma creep? What about how, this is all now through the whole culture? And I quote, said, this stuff about cancel culture or people saying they're traumatized for any little thing, that's not what my book is about. If people happen to use it for that, that's their problem, but leave me out of it. Okay? Now, here's where most aspiring A-list authors who actually have a destiny for greatness and for mastery Here's what they don't realize when they're submitting their book proposals written all around their trauma. So they kind of get it wrong. Okay. They think that they need to lead with their trauma to get views, to get followers, to build a platform, to get clients, to agitate pain points, to market their offers, certainly to land a book deal. And it's just not true. Actually, it's decreasingly true as time goes on, because your biggest advantage in the AI era or the creator economy or whatever we are calling the timeline we're in now, your biggest advantage is not your wounds. It's your vital life force energy. That's the thing AI can never replicate. So I love that Assata Shakur, rest in power, said, she wrote, that Black revolutionaries do not drop from the moon. We are created by our conditions, shaped by our oppression. And in the very same exact way, your trauma might have been the seed for why you do the work you do, but it's not who you be. Your point of maximum power is now, not back then. The purest, most concentrated balls of energy you have are not for your trauma. They are for your destiny. They are not for your past. They are for your future. They are for what I call your UDO vision, your ultimate dream outcome vision that you're casting for your customers. The UDO, upgraded diametrical opposite of your pain. So our job in this season as master teachers of whatever we be master teachers of is to use our craft to cast that vision. And the truth is that might require you to let yourself want what you want at a level you ain't let yourself want yet. It might require you to envision a way of being that you haven't even allowed yourself to dream of yet. Okay, and maybe that's why it's been hard to nail your marketing. One time I had a woman in one of my programs, and I was talking with her about the current situation. Who are her people? Who are her best fit customers? What is the pain to bliss journey she takes them on? And she said, they're very overwhelmed. And she had overwhelmed as their pain and not overwhelmed as their bliss. And I said, does not overwhelmed sound like bliss to you? Not overwhelmed doesn't sound like bliss to me. What's the if overwhelm is here, what is the upgraded diametrical opposite of overwhelm? And do you know what she said? She got very quiet, very serious, and she said, I don't think I know. I don't think I know. All right. So for her, we actually had to cast that powerful vision for herself first before she could cast it for her customers. All right. And that brings me to point number 2, which is my own personal mantra, credo as a teacher, as a master teacher. I got this from Karen Curry Parker, who was my human design teacher. Karen said, teach from your scars, not your wounds. Teach from your scars, not your wounds. Even when I had a very bad accident, not quite a year ago last year. I had 2nd-degree burns over 27% of my body. And, within about a month, 6 weeks, I was already starting to write and teach a bit about what I had downloaded, what wisdom I had developed, what meaning had been made of that experience. I called it my Phoenix era. But I didn't teach about that until I had already made the changes in my life and in my business and in my money and in my everything that I was, learning through that experience. So you don't teach while you're in the wounded state, you teach from your scars after. And you teach with frameworks and models and methods, but I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. The third point I want to make here is stop trauma bonding. Okay. I want you to stop trauma bonding, and I want you to start creating the book and the personal brand and the community powered course. And we're going to talk a whole lot about community powered courses in our YouTube journey together. That type of business that actually, it doesn't just sort of connect with people about a subject matter. You don't just drop a resource here and there. You actually guide, you help hold the space for, and you be present and you use your life force energy to, not your outputs, not your hard work, not your hours, not your service. You use your presence, your clarity, your models, and your life force energy to guide people, to guide proactive people, self valuing people, not trauma bonding people, out of the valley of their shadows and into the light of a new future together, a new post traumatic future together. Okay. But you got to remember that you cannot take people to freedom while you're still bound. If you create a shackles on, trauma first, woundologist book, brand, or business, you can't take your people to freedom from there. Like Esther Hicks is always saying, you can't get there from there. You can't take them to freedom while you're still in bondage or while you're building a business that is bondage for you. All right. So if you want to lead a movement, a community into that UDO vision state, that upgraded diametrical opposite, ultimate dream outcome vision for the people who went through something like what you went through, the first thing that you absolutely must understand is that it all starts with you. It starts with you and your trauma fully integrated. It starts with you and your trauma energies deactivated, or at least much less active than it is in the people that you serve. And here's the thing, like I just said, you might not even know what your UDO vision is yet in your life. That's totally normal. In some ways, that's the beauty of transformation businesses. Okay. Someone shared with me that another teacher in my general space said, one of my favorite students, what did she say? One of my favorite students has a course about making taffy apples. So, see, your course doesn't need to change people's lives. And I was like, that's her. That ain't me. Because the businesses and the author speakers, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, course creators, consultants, coaches that I work with, their work actually changes people's businesses, changes their money, changes their lives. Okay. And by the same token, transformation businesses actually surface what you, the entrepreneur, need for your own growth, for your own living of the UDO that you cast. But you must first cast that vision for yourself. You must do whatever you need to do to let yourself want what you really want at big self, true sacred self, wise inner being level, because you have to do that for yourself before you can help someone else. Okay. With that said, I hear teachers saying, gosh, people need to heal their trauma before they come into business. And I just don't believe that. I think if everybody needed to heal their trauma before they came into business, we would have no entrepreneurs. Okay. You don't have to wait until you achieve the fullness of the UDO vision that you're casting for your customers, but you do need to be 25% or 50% further along than your clients or your readers are. Okay. So no, you do not have to wait till you achieve your UDO vision to come into business. Your business, your brand, your book will actually help get you there, but they can't do that if you build them in your trauma. Okay. And I grew up as like a Black church girl. And in Black church, the ministers like to say, the book says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The book does not say to pitch a tent in the valley of the shadow of death. You don't move into your shadow. You don't dwell in your shadow forever. Okay. Your business, your brand, and your book are part of the vehicle that wants to take you from, where you were to where you're going, but you can't do that if you build them in the valley of your shadow. Your most marketable point is not your trauma. Your most marketable point is the ultimate dream outcome you will ultimately get to and help your clients get to through your business, through your book, through your brand. Okay. 2, your biggest advantage in the creator economy is not being the fastest. This is surprising to people, but it's actually a massive thing you have going for you to be a late bloomer. Okay. So I know I hear a lot of people in their 40s or 50s or beyond thinking that they're too late in life to start a YouTube channel, or you're too late in life or too late in the business to start this new business model. Okay. But if you're over 40 or if you are over 50 and you're even thinking about doing what I'm talking about, building this sort of, freedom oriented, alignment first, low stress, high income business with you at your integrated self at the center, you have an extraordinary, almost unfair advantage of time having been on your side. You've had more time after the trauma. While the other creators are out there talking about how anxious they are because of what people will think of them when they create content, you probably have a little bit of a different perspective on that. I know I do. I've had so much time after the trauma. I've been through the ups and the downs. I've had time to integrate the trauma. I know to teach from my scars and not my wounds. I want you to know to teach from your scars, but not your wounds. But I do want you to teach. You got to teach what you learned. And you have to understand that naming, this is the thing. As a quote unquote late bloomer, you've had all this experience, all this living, all of this learning, but you do have to actually share what you've learned about how to move through the valley of the shadow of the trauma and into a new season. Because what these people are doing with these trauma first platforms is naming their trauma, but naming is not teaching, naming is not integrating. All right. So, my call to you, if you're midlife or later coming into this space of, creating content on YouTube to power a business, I want you to step into your role, claim your role as a guide. Create a real container that don't just create a thought leadership platform or be a YouTuber, create a real container that takes people to a real outcome. Yes, see and witness what you need to see, name the trauma if you need to name it, name names if you need to name names, but then move forward. Yea, though we walk through the valley of the shadow, walk through the valley, don't sit in the valley, don't build a condo in the valley, walk through and grab your people's hand and take them with you. All right. Now, please catch this principle that trauma can be fully integrated. I know it because I have lived that. I had a magical and very complex PTSD childhood, diagnosed. Okay. I was raised by parents who were wonderful and totally fucking rageful at the same time. So, but now we're here, 25 years of talk therapy, 25 years of inner work, creating protocols, creating rituals, creating practices, first for myself, then for my clients, 25 years in the transformation business, 3 therapists, every alternative healing modality you can think of for mind, for body, for spirit, a wild life journey. Then 6 weeks of intravenous ketamine with a medical doctor, which truly was like fresh snow falling on the ruts in my brain. So I could receive what I needed to receive from the bodies of wisdom that I had been taught for decades and the bodies of wisdom of work that were trying to come through me. Moved to Europe after that. So see, what I teach is not the stories of my trauma. I teach the parables of my life. And the parable has an arc. The parable is a from to journey. Okay. For example, when I wrote the book Empires of the Soul, I just started the project in my own laptop, in my own Google Docs, in my own journal. I started with like, why? Why am I writing this book about how life-changing it is to create a business where you get paid a really lot of money to just be who you are, right? Why am I writing about alignment first business? Why does this matter? What's the role of money in this? What's the role of source and spirit in this? So I just started writing about it. And when I started writing, all kinds of things, I was writing about why this is my life's work, why I created the congruence codes and the inner critic cure and the do your dream and like all this stuff. The archetypes, all of these things. Why do I care about this work? Why do I care about these people? And as I wrote, what came out super surprised me. What came out was really it was a lot about my parents and a lot about their rage, because that I track back to the misalignments in the lives they were living from who they really are. And I wrote, actually longhand at the time, I wrote 40 pages about that. But do you know what? In the final book, in the final Empires of the Soul book, that section is one paragraph. It's one paragraph. And it's not one paragraph because I, worked hard to slash and rewrite and burn. It's one paragraph because in the process of me writing what I wrote, in the drafting process, I understood, I reframed my own story, right? It stopped being just like a sad little girl story. It started to become just the preface. Instead of it being my life story, it became the preface for why I do what I do now and how I know what I know now, right? I made meaning from the experience that I had lived, and I made it into a meaningful part of my framework, my model, my methodology. You have to remember, human memory is very, very malleable. So when you go back and reinterpret and re-understand the parts that, even the traumatic parts of the life that you have lived through the lens of how they bring you to where you are now, how they taught you what you know now, you reset you literally rewrite the trauma story that you live. Right? You can reset your own lived experience. You rewrite the narrative of that experience in your own mind, in your own body. You rewrite the reality of that time. I'm going to link to the Empire's book in the show notes below. And if I can, I'll try to even find a coupon code so you can just grab it. Okay. All right. So one more advantage I want you to understand that you have, my beloved, is there is a massive advantage if you are courageous enough to become a contrarian master of your work in an anti-mastery culture. Okay. And I will teach, or we'll have some more conversations about what it means to create your own model, your own frameworks, your own method of transformation that really works. Okay. At mastery level. And what shifts in your ability to be a category of one business when you do that. But here's where so many people get this wrong. Like the way we've been writing books and building brands and building businesses is actually just trauma bonding, period. That's what it is. And there is another way. There is the way of being a master of your craft, of your work. And now I know a lot of women, especially if they don't have a PhD, are used to being so nitpicked so hard that they're afraid that someone's going to call them underqualified. I mean, even Brené Brown is a PhD and flat out told the New York Times that she's afraid she's going to get mistaken for one of the grifters, one of the self-help grifters, if she gives people advice, which I think is, not true. Meanwhile, men are out here just teaching. Just teaching. This framework is named after me because I said it should be. And they're not oversharing their lives, and they're not trying to do all that, do too much to prove their worth for the whatever. But this is a complex that I see more in women. And so I see women experts oversharing, teaching from wounds, proving, performing, explaining too much, providing too dense information that really is repelling to dream clients, because dream clients have more money than time. They want to get to the promised land in less time, not more. They don't need you to prove your brilliance to them, okay? But we're out here proving and performing because the gatekeepers of publishing said we needed to. I mean, I literally have a colleague who is a middle-aged Black woman who wrote a genius book, sent it to publishers, and one of the publishers said, you know, I really liked this book, but I needed the son in this book to get shot or die or something at the end. She says, this is a memoir. My son is alive. What? Right? So we're still out here doing things in the name of our own self-liberation that the gatekeepers told us we needed to, or we're out here doing things because we think we got to do things the hard way. We're used to doing things we hate doing to make money, so we continue doing that. We can continue to recreate that in our own businesses. But here's what we forget. That metaphysically speaking, creative power, you have the power, here is how I teach creative power. The things you think about are more likely to happen because you think about them. The things you speak about are more likely to happen because you speak about them. There is massive power in the tongue. It's not about what you want, it's about what you talk about and how you talk about it, what you think about and how you think about it. So what you are speaking about is what you are laying the magnetic energy grid for to make it present in your world. If what you're speaking about is a bunch of trauma, you're going to attract a bunch of traumatized people in your world. And let me tell you something, your wisdom does not need to be legitimized in that way. I wonder what would happen if we all started letting our healing arc instead of our trauma wound story and our models and our frameworks and our methods legitimize our wisdom instead of our wounds. What if we told the story of full integration, complete? What if we told the stories of what it looks like, feels like, smells like, tastes like, sounds like when the battle day trauma is deactivated and that energy is no longer present in magnetizing in your new reality? What if we told a story about how you do that? You know, the kids say, where they do that at? Where they do that at? What happens next? That's interesting. That's mastery. But again, we live in an anti-mastery culture. There are just not that many models of true, deep, complete integration and healing in our world. Everyone is afraid to say that they've actually experienced complete healing, complete integration, and they've come out the other side more whole than they were before because they're afraid the other shoe will drop, or they're afraid that someone will find out that they have debt or pick their nose or something, and then they'll get canceled, all right? But that's absurd. Full integration and being fully post-traumatic, not in the active woundology. Being fully post-traumatic does not mean that you live a perfect life without ups and downs or without any inner work to be done or without anything. It just means you are wiser. It probably means you're more tender. I know that's what it means for me. It means you're no longer actively walking wounded, magnetizing life in at the level of those active wounds. Just to bring it back full circle, I love this quote from Carolyn Myss from like 97. She wrote an op-ed in the New York Times. Let's see if I can see what it was called. It's called Why People Don't Heal and How They Can. All right. And she wrote, we are not meant to stay wounded. We are supposed to move through our tragedies and challenges and help each other move through the many painful episodes of our lives. But by remaining stuck in the power of our wounds, we block our own transformation. We overlook the greater gifts inherent in our wounds, the strength to overcome them, and the lessons that we are meant to receive through them. Wounds are the means through which we enter the hearts of other people. They are meant to teach us to become compassionate and wise, end quote. But with all of our leaders modeling their trauma their wounds, no one actually seems to know that fully integrating your trauma is possible. And they certainly don't know what that would look like. We've normalized the trauma without normalizing the healing. But I think that if you're listening to me, it's because you know, like I know. And you and I both know that we're not seeing that in the marketplace. And Florence Scovel Shinn wrote once that there's a place in the world that only you can fill. There's something that needs to be done that only you can do. And she wrote that, this is from memory, so bear with me. She wrote that it usually takes the form of something that seems too good to be true. If you see that there is a big old gap in your industry or your space where there's no one who's modeling what the full integration, the healing, the after picture looks like, I'm here to tell you that might be the U-shaped hole that you came here to fill. All right? So, if you really want to free up your life so that you can live where you want, work how you want, how much or how little you want, with whom you want, doing what you want, and also be free of the trauma reactivation that so many of these gurus and, author entrepreneurs are experiencing, here's what you got to do. You got to understand what wonderful things, what ultimate dream outcome vision your trauma planted the seeds for. You got to cast that vision in a clarion call book and personal brand and business offer. You got to master the art and the science of helping people get from where they are now to that new future so you can forge that new future together. Get them to where they're living the UDO vision that you cast. And the way you do that is not through endless one-on-one service labor or client contracts that reactivate your trauma and burn you out. It's through a community-powered course, as systematic and clean, elegant offer sequence, through a content platform that liberates them and you, liberates you to full self-expression. So I'm going to leave you now till very soon, and I'll leave you with this. You can stop doing these three things. Stop fondling your trauma. You can set it down. Stop trauma bonding with your audience. Stop pain point marketing and attracting in more of what you already left behind. That's old news for you. That was then, this is now. Okay? I want you to start doing these three things. I want you to start casting a powerful ultimate dream outcome vision, just one. I want you to start creating models and frameworks with authority. Become a student of that. I'll teach you much more about that in our days to come together. There's so much beautiful work out there about creating models. And I want you to start, step into this mode where you start to realize that the empire you were born to build probably includes a community-powered course and a client-getting offer sequence that guides people to you so you can guide them into a new future. Make some space for the truth that your trauma is not your eternal destiny. You are eternal, but your destiny is mastery. To be the master. Maybe not the ultimate, but you can be 25% more masterful than your clients. All right. So I know it might feel strange to take on that mantle, but I also want you to understand that you can't take people to a mastery, to freedom through a journey of bondage. You just can't. You take them there by casting a vision and grabbing their hands and bringing your presence and life force to their journey and seeing that through, not through your hard work and hours, but through your presence and your life force and your model. All right. So if you're ready to start building your own freedom empire, your book, your personal brand, your business. Maybe you just want to build the business for now. You'll deal with the rest later. I got you. Okay. And if you want these assets to be rooted in your deepest work instead of your deepest wounds, I've got you. Okay. I want you to grab my free book, Empires of the Soul, below. It's specifically for those of us who are called and destined to build book brand business empires. who are ready to step into that alignment first, low stress, high income business powered by life force energy and intellectual property and client getting systems that bring in the people you love and who love you while you sleep or do Pilates or travel with your kids or homeschool or write your romantasy novel. Okay. So you can help them forge their new future. All right. In your zone of genius. All right. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.